Hi guys, this was a question I saw on a forum. We'll get into the question in a second, but first, thank you for everyone who's been doing this, the comments, the likes, the shares. All that sort of stuff helps grow the channel, helps feed the algorithm, and if that would be really kind if you could just like it and share it and comment. Comments are good too. Anything that interacts with this helps YouTube think that this is worth sharing. Cost you nothing, helps me immensely, so thank you. There are the books, Tools Not Rules, Logline. This t-shirt's also available. All the links are below. If you've got any questions, ask at here, craig.griffiths at griffithscreative.com. Let's get started. Let's answer that question. Here's the question. How do you turn a film into a TV show? If you have a film of 90 to 120 minutes long and you have to expand it to a 5-hour show, you have to add material and avoid material to be filler, or at least look like filler. At the same time, don't be overcomplicated. Sorry, I read that so poorly, but I read poorly anyway, as you guys know. Okay, how would I do it? I had a 90-minute film. I would first look at the conflicts. What happened before those conflicts? They explain those conflicts. Is there anything in those setups? You set something up. Is there anything in that would add to the film? If you look at Chernobyl, okay, we've got a Chernobyl meltdown. That's the event, that's the inciting incident. What can we have leading up to the meltdown? Well, we did. We saw that it was going to be a test. They were gearing it down to gear it back up. They left that too long. And we knew something went wrong. But then those episodes there about running it too low for too long and people sort of saying, oh, what about this, what about that, and the fear of bringing it back up, all those sorts of things were then later explained in detail in that court case. Oh, one of my favourite actors too. Jared Harris explained it in the courtroom scene when he's showing the blocks, and then this does this and this does this, and this is the balancing act within inside a nuclear reactor. But that was set up here when they were talking about, well, if we're running it too low, it's going to do this, it's going to do this. Then we had the inciting incident, bang, the explosion. So then what can we add into that explosion? Well, we can the firefighters. Well, now we've got the storyline about that firefighter and becoming sick and how it affects his wife. But okay, now we've introduced his wife. So now we can go back and show her in the apartment and her being worried about him and all the township going out and watching the radiation shoot into the sky and her being affected, but she didn't go, but everyone who was on that bridge died. And so you can start saying, well, what events have I put into my 90-minute story that are worth exploring in themselves? What makes them an interesting little story? A B, a C, a D. In a feature, they'd be the B to C to D because they'd be serving the main story. In expanding it out to 5 hours, the way I would do it is make them their own story that resolve and add emotionally to the stakes, show you the greater impact. You've got a story like this. How did that affect the world? Or how did it affect around it, the people around it, and then how did it affect the world? What decisions made within your through-line story start arcing out? I think at the very end, for that storyline about that lady who lost her husband and lost her baby in the radio, she just went on to have more kids. I think it was a wrap-up line on screen, if I remember rightly. I've watched Chernobyl in quite a while. The story came, it happened, it showed how the radiation was affecting people around the area, how that was a shining jewel. That town was a great thing in the Soviet Republic. It was showing how you could build a satellite city. The living there was great. It had a burgeoning middle class. It was all powered by the reactor. There was a lot of people around. It was a great thing, and it took it all out. It's now in the Ukraine, but it took it all out with the destruction of Chernobyl. So you can build out by saying what happened, why did it happen, what's the backstory. Don't go into endless backstories. Don't talk about the grandfather when it's got nothing to do now, unless the grandfather was the first person to be a gangster in the family. And then you can have an event there which maybe then colours the attitudes of the family going through. And now the grandson, let's make one up real quick ourselves. Grandfather, fisherman, migrates to a town, is being picked on by somebody, overreacts, fights back brutally, finds that that's solving a few problems, kicks on with his brutality, becomes like a gangster, and is known as being an incredibly brutal hard gangster, hard to get along with. He's the first Godfather sort of guy. They get a little bit more legitimate in their business. The son tries to make it a bit more legitimate. And then the grandson takes over. The dad, who's trying to turn it legitimate, is beginning to get sick. The grandson might be in his 20s. He's a flashback to the grandfather. He's going to be incredibly brutal because the same thing happens again. Now we've got that reflection in the story. Someone's coming in, threatening them. He's going to overreact like his grandfather. He's going to be incredibly brutal like his grandfather. So we had the grandfather story. Well, we could have started that story just here. Dad having an argument with the son saying, we've made this a legitimate business. And the son saying, they've come in, they're doing it. That doesn't matter. We've got a chance of being a legitimate business now. And just gone from there. That could have been your film. But now you've got, well, let's look at the family. Is there a few stories before that? We've got 90 minutes. Okay, so if we can get 30 minutes out of the grandfather in an episode or so, we've now got 100, we had 120 minutes, we've now got 150 minutes. So we're halfway through our 3 hours that we need to fill up, or whatever it is, the 300 minutes that we need to fill up, 150 minutes. So then we start branching out. What about this family that's coming in? What about these gangsters coming in? Have they got a bit of a backstory? What makes this so important for them rather than just being an invading threat? Is there a bit of a backstory for them? So what's the impact now? So we've got to have a failure, then a success, then a failure. So we've got to keep this conflict going on. It's got to escalate. So as this is getting bigger, is it going to bring in people like the FBI or whatever this version of the FBI might be in this world we're in? So you can start to see where before it was a father trying to be legit, the son doesn't want to be legit. Some gangsters come in, starts a bit of a gangster war. However it's resolved, that's your feature. Now we can begin to put things in. Look outside, look at the history, look at all those sorts of things. Thank you for everyone. As I've said before, interact. It's all good. And until next time, keep writing. Bye, guys.